Have you ever wondered why you don't quite fit in? Why you can see through people's motives, feel their emotions so deeply, yet still end up on the outside looking in? If that sounds like you, this message is for you. Today, we're uncovering the spiritual design behind the INFJ personality type, often called the advocate or the counselor, and what the Bible reveals about people who live life as outsiders but walk in divine purpose. Popular culture refers to such people as chosen ones nowadays. God doesn't make mistakes. If you've ever felt like an outcast, an overthinker, or a soul that feels too much, you are in good company. Many of God's greatest servants were exactly that. Misunderstood, often lonely, but chosen for something greater. INFJs are rare, only about 1% of the population. They are deep thinkers, highly intuitive, and carry a heart that wants to help, heal, and understand others. But there is something profoundly biblical about that nature. The INFJ reflects aspects of Christ's character: empathy, wisdom, discernment, and a relentless drive to bring light into darkness. When the Bible describes Jesus as one who had compassion on the crowds because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd, Matthew 9:36. That is the INFJ spirit in action, feeling what others feel, not from the surface, but from the soul. INFJs are guided by intuition, a kind of inner knowing. In psychology, this is called introverted intuition, or NI. In Scripture, it is called discernment. It is the ability to see beyond appearances and understand the heart of things, to perceive truth in a world built on illusion. That same gift can sometimes feel like a burden. When you see too much, feel too deeply, and understand what others overlook, it can make you feel painfully different. But you are not broken. You are wired for divine insight. You see through lies because your spirit recognizes truth. Kindness is a cornerstone of the INFJ spirit. You want to help, to fix, to heal. But sometimes, kindness turns into exhaustion, especially when people take advantage of your empathy. The Bible reminds us that Jesus, too, was often misunderstood and rejected by those he loved most. Isaiah 53 calls him a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. INFJs often carry emotional burdens that don't belong to them, feeling others' pain, internalizing it, and trying to restore balance. But even Jesus withdrew to pray alone. The lesson is simple: you cannot pour from an empty cup. Kindness should never come at the cost of your soul. True compassion does not mean self-destruction. Even God rested on the seventh day. If you are an INFJ who constantly gives, remember that boundaries are holy. You are not called to fix everyone. You are called to reflect God's love. And sometimes that means stepping back and letting Him do the healing. Every gift carries a shadow. For INFJs, that shadow often comes in the form of pride, not arrogance, but the subtle pride of believing you see what others do not. You might feel frustrated with people who seem shallow or blind to truth. Or you may isolate yourself because you feel misunderstood. But the Bible warns that knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. 1 Corinthians 8:1. Even insight, when not rooted in humility, can become a barrier. INFJs must remember that their depth is a gift, not a measure of superiority. You are not meant to stand above others, but to walk alongside them, guiding, not judging. That is what Jesus did. Though he had infinite understanding, he still knelt to wash his disciples' feet. That is the posture of divine wisdom: humility, born from love. If you are an INFJ who feels unseen or unheard, remember this: your humility is your strength, and your quiet wisdom is your power. Being different is not a punishment, it is a calling. From Moses to Jeremiah to John the Baptist, the Bible is filled with outsiders, people who did not fit the mold, who were rejected by society, but who walked closely with God. Moses was raised in privilege, but became a wanderer. Jeremiah was called a weeping prophet. Elijah felt utterly alone. Even David, the man after God's own heart, spent years in caves, running from those who misunderstood him. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. INFJs often walk that same road, feeling unseen, craving deep connection, and wondering why they're different. But those who walk alone often walk closest to God. The world rewards loud voices and conformity, what the Bible calls the wide road. But Jesus said the narrow road leads to life, Matthew 7:14. That narrow road is for those who refuse to lose their soul just to belong. Let's talk about the herd. The Bible often speaks of sheep and shepherds, not as an insult, but as a symbol. Sheep follow instinctively, often without questioning direction. The danger comes when we follow the wrong shepherd. Modern culture thrives on herd mentality, trends, groupthink, and moral compromise disguised as freedom. But INFJs feel the tension. Their souls resist conformity because they sense the Spirit calling them higher. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." INFJs embody that verse naturally. You think differently, feel deeply, and reject shallow living. That is not rebellion. It is divine discernment. However, standing apart from the herd can be lonely. Yet God always calls his leaders from the fringe. If you feel like you don't belong, it's probably because you are not supposed to. You are called to lead, not to follow. INFJs have a prophetic edge, not in the mystical sense, but in how they can see ahead. You can sense outcomes, predict emotional reactions, and understand where people's choices will lead. But that insight often comes with pain. When you see truth others deny, it can isolate you. But remember what Paul wrote, "We see through a glass, darkly," 1 Corinthians 13:12. You may not be fully understood now, but your insight matters. Do not silence your gift to fit in. The world needs your depth. Just like Joseph, misunderstood, betrayed, but ultimately elevated by God, your discernment will one day make sense. People might reject your vision today, but they will thank you tomorrow when it saves them. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to shine. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Matthew 5:14. INFJs, introverts, outcasts, your quiet fire matters. You don't need a crowd to validate your worth. God designed you to impact hearts, not headlines. Your value isn't in visibility. It is in authenticity. When you choose integrity over popularity, empathy over ego, and truth over comfort, you become unstoppable. That is what makes you different. And that is what the world needs most right now. If you've ever prayed, "God, why am I so different?" Maybe the answer is, because I needed someone who could feel what others ignore, see what others can't, and love when others won't. You are not broken for being rare. You are rare because you are chosen. The world needs your empathy, your discernment, and your light. The narrow path may be difficult, but it leads to holy destinations. Do not hide your depth. Do not water down your truth. God gave you a heart that feels heaven. And when you walk with Him, even as an outsider, you become exactly what this world needs most, a reflection of His heart.